Hey there, welcome to How I Got Hired. This is the podcast to inspire ambitious professionals just like you to find that job you love or completely reinvent your career. I'm your host, Sonal Bahl, founder of Supercharge and career strategist. And every week I hold conversations with ordinary people like you and me from around the world who've had extraordinary success in finding their dream job so you can learn how they got hired. Now, today I am going to say, I am so glad you decided to press play. Why is that? I'm going to introduce today's guest with a little story. On the 25th of March, 2002, Sana was traveling with her sister on a highway in Islamabad when they suddenly met with a deadly road accident. Her sister died on the spot while Sana's body was 95% paralyzed. In hospital, Sana was unable to talk or move any of her body parts. Her only way of communication was blinking her eyes. And in order to get attention of sleeping nurses, she would often bite on the ventilator tube to stop the oxygen supply and set off the alarm. After years of medical treatment, she was able to talk, but physically became wheelchair-bound for the rest of her life. This Iron Girl, however, did not lose heart. Sana went on to complete her studies in London and successfully completed her LLB and LLM and is now a practicing lawyer in Lahore and actively works for the differently abled. I love that she says, don't call them disabled, they're differently abled, and is committed to making public places accessible for everyone, everywhere. Let's learn from my lovely guest, Sana Khurshid, who has turned adversity into advocacy. Sana, such a warm welcome, such an honor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sonal. It's the pleasure and the honor is all mine. I'm so thank you for inviting me to your wonderful podcast and for the lovely words that you just said. And I'm really happy to be here and to talk to you.
I'm delighted you're here, Sana, and I know this is going to be an extraordinary conversation. So, Sana, let's get started. And I want to start by talking about the Sana Khurshid from before 2002. I read an article of yours where you talked about this. I want to remember the Sana I was, the Sana I will never be, and say a little prayer for her. Sana, you were a first-year medical student when the accident happened. Talk to us about, at that time, what is it that made you choose medicine as a career option back then?
I think ever since I was a little girl, my dream was to become a doctor. I come from a family, my parents are a doctor, my elder sister is a doctor. We have a private hospital. And ever since I can remember as a kid, the highlight for the day used to be to go and visit my dad in the hospital, sit in his ENT chair, pretend to see patients. My mother had opened a free clinic in my name, and I remember I was hardly 7 or 8. I used to go and check how many patients she had checked that day. So, it was, of course, I think from a very young age, I knew I was going to be a doctor, and there was no doubt about that. And of course, I was going to be a surgeon. So yeah, I had my life all planned out. And,
Yes.
I still find it really, I can't understand when people say, oh, we don't know what we'll become when we're old. And I was like, okay, really? Because from a very young age, I had like my life all mapped out. And as I grew older, I knew which field I wanted to specialize in. So, the day that I got admission into a medical college, that you can imagine the height of my happiness. When you achieve the goal that you set for yourself and you get admission in a good college. My sister was already studying there. So, I'd always loved that college. I'd been tons of times, I'd been there to go pick her up. I loved it. And to go there as a student myself, it was like I was beyond ecstatic. So, I was just there for 2.5 months when, like you just said, on the motorway, we were going to another city. We got into a car accident. The tire of a car burst, and the driver, instead of just letting the car go, he applied the brakes, and yes, you can imagine the horrific details yourself. I don't think I need to be very explicit, because it left me with a spinal cord injury, a complete spinal cord injury at the C4, C5 level, which means that I'm paralyzed from the chest downwards. I cannot move all four of my limbs. And I lost my sister in that accident. So yes, I got to know about that very late, because nobody told me. Obviously, I was not in the right state of mind to hear that. And but yeah, I mean, like, if to say that that was the darkest period of my life, it was the worst tragedy that had ever befallen us, would be an understatement. It has taken years for us as a family to even discuss what happened. I don't think we were ever, I mean, even up till now, I don't think we've sat down and really discussed details, because I don't know. We haven't, I don't know. So yeah, it's not something that you want to go back to. And I'm very grateful that we've all evolved and come really I mean, the progress that I've made, it's been very slow. I mean, I see people jumping back to their normal lives very a few months down the road. It took me years and years to accept this new, like I said, the new Sana that I had become, because I was not ready to accept it. I wanted to be the person that I was, that I dreamed of becoming. And because I'd achieved that, I felt that it was very unfair. It was unfair on me to be thrust into circumstances which were not my fault. I mean, it was not my fault that I had an accident and a few people survived without a few scratches. I mean, and I suffered this injury, and it's very difficult to understand at that young age. I mean, I'm still, of course, I'm human. I do get the occasional what if, but I somehow I know the answer to that as well. But of course, to be human is to feel, and you do feel sad and depressed and frustrated.
Of course, 100%,
angry and bitter. But yes, thank God. As time passes, and I think you sort of start appreciating the life that you have instead what it would have been. So your life starts changing, and I appreciate that fact, and I'm grateful to that fact, and I feel like I'm very blessed that I've got a life now, and I've made something out of it, which I can be proud of. And sometimes I think I am a little too hard on myself, but yes, that's the way I am. So
no, I first of all, thank you for being so honest. You're talking about a lot of things that we don't want to talk about. We want to brush it under the carpet. And Sana, the culture that you and I come from, things like therapy and talking out your feelings are still relatively new concepts. You're expected to, hey, what, you look fine, everything's fine, let's move on, and moving on is hard. It's been 19 years and you're talking about it and it feels like it's happened yesterday. Obviously there's been so much growth in this period of time, the transformation. And you said you can imagine. Actually I can't. And anyone who's got empathy or sympathy, it's very different when they've actually been through a life changing event, like the one that you've been through. So the anger and the bitterness, it's real. It's real, what you're talking about. And people who've gone through different set of circumstances, and that feeling of anger and then the victim, and then how that changes into gratitude and appreciating what you've already got, that doesn't happen overnight. So in fact, Sana, I want to talk about that a little bit more, because there's all this stuff out there, TED Talks and books and motivational quotes on resilience and how to get over the adversity. It's only when you're in that adversity yourself that you really see what you're made of. Talk to us about that, Sana. During some of the darkest moments, what is it that kept you pushing through day after day?
Sonal, the thing is that, words and books and people's advice,
Yeah.
they're all very well and good, but they don't mean anything until you are ready to accept, until you yourself have reached that point where you are like, okay, this has happened. It's okay. It's not ideal. It's not something that I want. It's not something that I planned. But okay, it has happened. Now let's move
Yeah.
on. So,
Yeah.
when I was in the hospital, or even after a few years later, when I came home, and I used to be bedridden because I had the most worst case of bed sores and pressure ulcers. It's something, it's a constant struggle. It's a vicious cycle because one day you're well and the other you're not. So it's very hard to count your blessings at that time. So
Yeah.
people used to just tell me that, oh, you're lucky to be alive. And I was like, what are they talking about? They are not in my position. It's very nice to just lecture and tell.
Yeah.
I used to be very resentful, but I
Yeah.
started, obviously, because, but it's later, much later, that I realized they were right. But then it was too soon to tell me all that stuff. At that point, all I wanted to hear was just nothing,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Silence
Yeah.
was, I think, the best thing that anybody could do for me. They were all well intentioned phrases that this time will pass and time
Yeah.
heals everything. They were all right. I mean, they were trying to help, but it didn't mean anything to me. And instead, it made me angry.
Yeah.
It made me, it's like, of course, you're lecturing me, but would you like this life for yourself? It's like a million emotions going through your head,
Yeah.
especially at a very young age,
Yeah.
because you feel you've robbed of everything.
Yeah.
So it was much later in my life, and I remember my sister Amna telling me that, Sana, you have this life. You have no choice over that. You have been blessed with a life, but where your choice lies is that either you can spend it crying and mourning and just getting bitter and bitter every day, or you can embrace this new change and new life and just make something out of it. So I think I am very lucky in that respect, that I am surrounded by my family. I always call them my army of support and love. They never gave up on me, so they are the prime sources of encouragement and support that I had. And they were the ones who sort of got me out of that gloom and doom phase. I mean, I was not an easy person to live with. Obviously, when you can't,
Yeah.
when you're going through something, the
Yeah.
obvious reaction is to lash out over everything.
Sure. Sure. Mental health.
So
Hello. I mean, we talk about it a little bit more now, but back then,
I
eh,
know.
all the
I
feelings just coming together and like a volcano. I
I
can.
remember my mother arranged a therapist for me, and that person came, and but it was just a few weeks after the accident. First thing he said to me, "Oh, come on, tell me what happened." And I was not ready to tell him, obviously, but whatever I said, he was like, "Okay, now forget that ever happened. You just need to forget everything." It's like,
Oh. Oh.
so yeah, and a couple of other things. I mean, yeah, my mother did everything under the sun. Whatever she could get hold of, whatever kind of
Sure.
therapy or treatment, and I've been through a lot. So yeah, so I think, but love and their love and their constant support is what kept me going, and
Yes.
is what made me come out of that. And I think for them, I would say this, and I've written a lot about this as well. For them, I had never changed.
Yeah.
I was still the same person for my friends, for my family, I just didn't know that yet. And obviously, of course, I miss a lot of parts of me, which I can't even explain, and I don't even want to get into. But I have accepted this new person, and a very close friend of mine is like, you should accept it because you're a much better person now. Why would you want to become the Sana that you were? You weren't very, amazing. You're awesome now. It's like, okay,
Oh,
if you
wow.
say
That's
so.
talk about silver linings. Oh my gosh. There's something that you said that I want to take away for the listener because, the last 18 months have been so horrific. A lot of us have lost loved ones um, with, COVID and so many things going on. The intentions are good. We mean well. And sometimes offering words of comfort can come across as a very hollow thing for the other person. So I love that you said that the thing I wanted to hear was nothing. And I think presence, sometimes just presence, triumphs words. And like awkward, it's so awkward, it's so quiet right now, I must say something. It's not necessary to say something, and let the silence take its course. You were on your journey, we're all on our journey. There are days you don't want to listen to the things you maybe need to hear, but you're not, the timing isn't there, right?
You're
So
not there yet.
it's not there yet. And I completely understand where your mom was coming from, and God bless that therapist, but that is not the way to go about it. So and particularly when you're young, right, and you're in your like late teens and early 20s, you're figuring things out as it is, you're figuring things out. So I totally appreciate that.
Yes.
And Sana, so now let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about law and this decision. There's a whole like science dedicated to decision making, and I'm very keen to hear about how this decision came about to study law after everything that you'd been through. Was it one of those well thought out, researched decisions, or was it sort of one fine day, something in your instincts told you that, Sana, this is where you're needed? How did it happen?
I mean, I wish, I always tell people this, I wish I had a very glamorous story to tell you that how I chose law, but unfortunately there isn't. So, the first thing, the day I took the decision that, okay, now this has happened. Now I need to start getting my life in order. I need to start living in the true sense.
Yes.
So, the obvious thing was obviously I was going to resume my studies because education and degrees in our family is it's a big deal. And
yes.
I come from a family where PhDs are treated like it's like a master's or an undergrad degree. Everybody has it. So obviously I was going to study, but so medicine was out of a question. So what I did was I started narrowing down fields, and I narrowed down on two, law and psychology. So I remember I discussed this with my uncle, who really pushed me to start studying as well. So I sort of he was for law because both of my interestingly both my grandfathers were lawyers too, and we've got a lot of lawyers in our family. So I think it just seemed like the right choice, and I just went from there. And it's like law happened to me, and you do reach your true calling. And I think it was the best decision that I made, and I really enjoyed. And one of the driving factors for choosing law was because I used to love reading. Books were my best friends back in the day. I was hooked onto social media, and I used to read like one book a day. So law just seemed really interesting, and it just happened, and that's it.
Yeah. And you applied and you got into the law university in London, correct? How was that experience, Sana?
No, so no, the thing was, I I knew my limitations. I know myself. I know that I not going to push myself beyond what I can easily do. So attending a full term college or university was not an option for me. I was in UK when I chose law, but we were coming back to Pakistan, and obviously could not stay there. My father had business here, and of course my sister was studying; she was in medical school at the time and all that. So, and obviously Pakistan is home for me, so we were going to stay here. So what I did was I applied for the University of London. It was called the Distant Learning Program, the international program. And I visited a couple of universities here who were offering the same course. But those universities weren't accessible. So obviously I would have loved to attend college because, college is just not for getting a degree. It's the whole experience.
Of course.
Since mine had been cut short, of course, I wanted to, but that was not going to happen. Plus, I remember the first meeting that I had, they were like, this attendance is going to be a big issue and you need to have like 99% attendance or what. And I was like, I knew myself then. I wasn't very strong at that time, and I knew I couldn't attend college full time. And obviously, it was not accessible. So it was not even an option for me. So I did my LLB entirely on my own. I'm just self-taught.
Yeah.
And after that, I did my LLM. So the credit, the thing is that British Council over here, I need to give them credit. They are very helpful. So, like I said before, I'm paralyzed from the chest down.
Yes.
So I can't write. I do not have any hand function. So I used to get a writer and I used to dictate my answers.
Wow.
So that in itself was a big challenge because realize obviously it was a person who had no background in law. So I used to spell out each and every word. So it was like ABC, space, comma, new line, new paragraph, leave some space, take it. Capital letter, no, now small alphabets. Okay, so I need to just spell each and everything.
And as a lawyer, attention to detail is paramount. So
obviously, because I was going to be judged on that paper, and that paper didn't say that this paper has been written by a writer and the student has been dictating. So obviously, it went into the normal, with everybody else. So that was a lot of work. It was very frustrating at the time, and then I used to have really good handwriting. And I remember once or twice I had writers. I couldn't even read my own papers. Like, oh my God, good luck to the examiner. I hope he can read it. The thing is, I don't like to make excuses for myself, and I don't like to emphasize on the negativities and the difficulties. I managed, so it was not too bad. And I passed and I did good. So
okay. Oh my gosh. I did not.
Sorts of challenges.
Yeah. No, thank you for correcting that. I was also wondering about that. So, wow. So an assignment that would take someone a couple of hours would take you much, much longer because the challenge was very, very different. So I hope the listener is listening very intently to what you just said, because a lot of us are living with excuses. And honestly, if Sana could do this, what is your excuse? Like, I want to drill this down. Sometimes we need a little tough love. If Sana, if you had said to your family, I can't, it's too much, they would have understood. But you knew there's more to you, right? And you come, it's not just the fact that you come from this accomplished family of lawyers and doctors. You also, that inner hunger and that drive, like there's more to me, right? I can do so much more, and I'm not like the things aren't done. So kudos to you for pushing on all those years of dictation, correction with the writers. And of course, nobody does things on their own. It takes a village, British Council, etc. I'm so glad you called that out, because it takes even longer to do it alone, right? So fantastic. So Sana, now having finished all of your studies, describe to us, what is it you do today?
Okay. So I don't work full time because, like I said before, I know my limitations. I can't make that kind of commitment. It'd be unfair on the institute or wherever the workplace. So I freelance. Okay. I do, and basically with that, the thing that I enjoy doing is I am an accessibility advocate. I advocate for public and commercial places to be accessible, not just for people with mobility impairments, but for the ones with visual and hearing impairments as well. And the goal is to cater up, to make all public and commercial places inclusive of people of all impairments. So then, it's the 25, it's 2021. It's high time that everybody had the same fundamental rights. Because, just because I'm a wheelchair user does not make me any less than you. So it's an understood thing. Why are we even fighting or arguing about this?
Yes.
given.
Yes.
So that is like, I found my true calling in that. That is what I do. That is what I love to do, and that is what gives me pleasure, and that is what keeps me going. To get messages from just random people telling me, oh, you got that ramp made over there. Now we can take our brother, our sister, our mother, whoever. We can take them over there. So thank you so much. And the outpouring of love and the encouragement that I get for complete random strangers, it is so overwhelming, Sonal. And I'm like, oh, uh, are they talking to me?
Yeah.
Why I'm not
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
so, that's what keeps you going, because you're
Yeah.
not just making a place or the world a better place for you. You're doing for other people as well. So that is what I do, and
Yeah.
that is what I am going to do. And I've been very that, and I'm very lucky that I've been very lucky in my fight for accessibility, that I have had very good results now. I've been on it since a few years now. The initial stages, I've encountered so much negativity, and and I sometimes, I was like, why is this other person even justifying the lack of access? What is that? Why would they even do that? And I remember I had like a meeting, me and my lawyer, we had this meeting with the town planner, and his own office was on the first floor and there was no lift. And the irony was totally lost on that guy, because his own building was in violation with the law and
Yeah.
the accessibility code, but he couldn't understand it. I think the problem with people in countries like ours is that until and unless they themselves suffer through something, they don't think it's an issue. They're
Serious,
very
serious lack of empathy. Serious.
extremely. And it's not an issue. It should be an issue. So, but yeah, I filed a petition in the High Court, and that was much later. First, I started this advocacy on my own, and I am a very social person. I have a lot of friends, and the only entertainment sort of we have over here is to go out and eat, and I love doing that. So, I started from there. I called out places which didn't have ramps, and a lot of them obliged. But on the other hand, there's just some extremely weird and strange.
I see you. I see you holding. I see you holding your tongue. I can understand. I can understand that.
I remember, I'm like a restaurant owner. He had just 2 steps in his cafe, and I used to visit there a lot. It's just 2 steps, and he had promised me that he'd get a ramp made, and I remember I did a social media post on it, and he called in an army of his own friends and supporters who were like, started bashing me that, oh, if you can't walk, why didn't you just stay in the car and eat?
What?
I was like, I've made a rule. I don't engage with such people. If they still haven't understood what is wrong and flawed with their argument and with the words they're saying, then I can't waste my time in educating them.
No.
It's already too late.
It's exhausting, Sana. How much education can you do? That's not your job.
You need to pick and choose the right battles. Otherwise, you will just sort of be defending all day and night. So I consider such negativity noise. I ignore it. I ignore it completely, because it's not good for me. It's not good for mental health. And I'm not going to let those sort of people affect me.
Sure. And, there's something called karma at the end of the day. What goes around comes around. That's not your job. You're not judging that. That's their prerogative. But I highly recommend to anyone who's listening to follow Sana on Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. On Instagram particularly, I love every single victory, little by little, the things that you achieve. It's I love the ripple effects of that. One ramp, it's like, it's a ramp. There's a long way to go. but that one ramp is one step closer to winning that battle on real inclusion, right? And there's so many, and you and I chatted before, there's so many positive side effects. For example, someone whose knees are hurting, or someone who's got a baby stroller and they need to push it. So those are people who are blessing you as well, thinking, oh gosh, now it makes me a little bit easier. Those 10 steps, which others just breeze through, it makes it so much easier for me that I can go gently on that ramp. So I love that you shared that. And the negativity, you can be doing great things for fighting for people who don't have a voice or don't use that voice, like somebody like Sana, and you will still come across negativity and trolls. So I love that you said that you got to pick your battles. And Sana, when you listen to the word inclusion, it's become so fashionable now to talk about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. When you listen to all of this stuff, how do you define inclusion?
For me, inclusion is that the day when everybody, and by everybody I mean everybody, when they start enjoying same rights, and it's all equal, and there's no you and me and this or them. That is what inclusive means. And everybody has the same right to all the facilities, the rights, and you cannot deny a person just because they're slightly different from you. See, so we need to address that. Educate. One of the things that I didn't mention that, but one of the things that I do, and I used to love, I mean, before COVID, I used to do this a lot. I used to visit schools a lot, especially young children. And I believe that these children are the society that we are going to become. So they need to be taught at a very young age that, hey, people are going to be different from you. And I'm not just talking about a person with a disability, a person who has a different color than you, a person who speaks differently from you. At a young age, we sort of just exclude anybody who doesn't fit our frame, and the makeup that we are. And, they just excluded, and there's a sort of, they might not even realize it but intentionally, but there's an arrogance attached with you. And one of the best things that I used to do was I used to go and visit schools, and I used to tell them my story, tell them how I've come to do what I do, how it has been with me. And I used to let them ask me questions. And now, Sonal, you'll be surprised. I have to say that it's a no holds bar. Ask me anything.
And as it is, kids don't have much of a filter,
that they
right?
used to come up with. Yes, I was like, oh my God, why did I even read? But yeah, no. So that is. But
can you share an example of a couple of questions that you were like, whoa?
I don't know. There've been so many that but so these children need to be taught from a very young age that everybody is equal and everybody is the same. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I strongly believe we need to have an education system that's inclusive as well. Because we all learn from each other, small things.
Yeah.
So when you have a group of people who are working together, studying together, you can both benefit each other. Because you cannot judge me just because I'm in a wheelchair. I might have skills that maybe you could learn from me, like I'm going to learn from you.
Of course.
So we need to create an environment where everybody's skills, their abilities are, where everybody can reach their full potential. So, and we cannot just wait for the state to facilitate us. It starts from us first. We need to see how we as a person, if we go out and, take an example like, if we go out and we can see that a mother is struggling with the stroller and with a little kid, and, she's trying to open the door, just a small thing, go and open the door for her. It's not a big deal. It's nothing, but it would matter to her.
Yeah.
So like I always tell these kids that, you don't need to make grand gestures or anything. Sometimes even a smile works.
Sometimes
And that,
even a smile works, and a small little gesture means a lot. And everything doesn't have to be a fight, in the sense that do your bit. I love that you're talking about the grassroots aspect of it, as opposed to shifting accountability and blaming the government, which I think in every country there is a culture of it's someone else's problem. You're like, no, the buck stops with me. This is what I can do, and I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to stop till it's done.
because Sonal, I've been through it. I remember I used to go to places, and the lack of access used to really. First, I used to feel embarrassed because maybe I used to think, oh, maybe it's my fault. I'm the only one. It's not their fault. They haven't kept a ramp. I should be the one who should have, who should walk on the steps. I mean, why should they cater for me? But then I realized, no, they need to facilitate me as well. And another thing I realized was that after coming home, what did I do? I used to, like anybody else, has to come home crib and moan that, they haven't done this, they haven't done that. I was like, one day I was like, hey Sana, what have you done for yourself? So you need to start taking ownership of the problem, and you just start doing something yourself. Because if you don't do anything yourself, how can you expect others to do anything for you? So you need to become your own voice, and never think, that's what I tell kids as well, never think that your voice is not enough. Sometimes it's just one voice, it's one step that gets the ball rolling, and it just the journey like we say, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Single step.
That first step is very difficult. It takes a lot of courage to take that. But once you do, then the sky is your limit.
Yeah, no, I love that you talked about that. And it's reminding me of Lord of the Rings, which is a movie I'm a big fan of. And there was a line in there, Galadriel, even the smallest person can change the course of the future. And like, who are we to doubt? And that ego, Sana, is so, and everyone who's listening right now, that ego is so sneaky. It just comes in and says, this is so embarrassing. Like, this is your fault. Stay home. There is no need to go out. Why should the restaurant be punished just because you're on a way? What crock, like what BS, right? But it affected you because you're human, and it happens to so many of us. So someone who's listening today, oh, that job looks exciting, who am I to apply? I haven't made all these achievements, I'm just gonna not apply. So we have to be very careful, because the ego is not your friend. And the other thing I want to highlight here that you said is that I say this a lot on LinkedIn and social media. There are two types of people in the world. They're the complainers, and they are the obtainers. The complainers will talk and complain and just talk about how everything is wrong, and they're bitter. They don't move past the complaining. The obtainers are like, yeah, okay, this is crap. Like, I get it. I accept it. What am I going to do about it? What is my role? And they go on and do things that nobody thought was possible. So 100% be an obtainer, be somebody like Sana.
The thing is, Sona, the problem with us is that, we ourselves are so conscious of our own. I always say we are our own worst enemies.
Yes.
And,
yes.
It took me a long while to realize that the limitations that I had put on myself, the physical ones were okay. They were also what they were being catered for. But the mental barriers that I had put, they were self-imposed. And once I overcame that, then it became easy. And it was not anybody's fault. Because I myself was in that negative space, I just let negativity engulf me and consume me. And believe me, it's exhausting. Yeah. And I realize now that I've wasted years of my life. And it was not worth it. I shouldn't have, but then I think that no, Sana, I think that journey was necessary.
Was meant
Those
to go
steps
through it.
were necessary to become the person that I am today. So, like I said before, we shouldn't be very hard on our own self. We should appreciate the journey and pat ourselves on the back for even the smallest thing that we achieve.
Yeah.
Even if that means waking up in the morning and just getting out of bed and putting on clothes. So
Yes.
every little bit counts. Do not judge yourself by the standards that the society has made for you.
Yes.
So be your own hero, be your own just keep going, not for anybody else, but for your own self.
Yeah.
And if you want to take time, take all the time in the world. I have taken, like I said, I've spent years feeling sorry for myself. So, but like we were saying that when I started my education, I had that in me that I had to sit for like 2 A-level exams because there was a gap in my
Mm.
studies. So to be eligible for LLB, I had to do that. And I was like, A levels. I was a medical student. Why would I,
There's
but
the
it's
ego again.
okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter that. And I was very conscious that, oh my God, what will people say? I mean,
Yeah.
my friends are in college already and I have to sit for my A-level exams. So it's okay. It doesn't matter. These are trivial things. Later on in
Yes.
life, you look back and you're like, oh my God, why did I even waste a
It
second
didn't
on?
matter. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I want to marry this with what you said a little earlier because I think they go very well together. I want to, you talked about self awareness where you're like, I know myself really, really well, right? And the other aspect is you are your own worst enemy. So be aware that yes, you know yourself, you know what you're strong at, you know what your limitations are. On the other hand, are you in your own way? Because they're two very different, kind of sides of the same coin. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, Sana, we're coming close to the end, and I can't believe it because the time has absolutely flown. It's been such a fabulous conversation. And, there is this one question, Sana, that I ask every single guest of mine on the podcast. Um, Now, you've had so many huge um, moments in your life. And I wonder which one you're going to pick out, or maybe there's another one. Is there one standout defining moment that supercharged your career and helped you to move towards your current success?
I think the day that I started not just thinking for myself, the day that I understood that, getting a ramp made is not just a ramp, it's not just a concrete construction thing, it's something bigger than that. It's that what this ramp symbolizes,
Represents, yes.
what it represents. So I think that day, and like I said, when I did my first social media post, the love, the encouragement, and the things that just complete random people shared with me, of the difficulties that they themselves were feeling in their life, one does not need to go get a spinal cord injury to, that's not the only tragedy or the trauma that can affect you. There are a million other things. And another thing that I've learned in my journey is that I cannot judge other people's problems. What for me might not be that important, but would just be the end of the world for somebody else. And I shouldn't judge them. I should be understanding because we all have our own troubles. We all have our own battles. And the things that random people shared with me, it was overwhelming, and I realized, okay, if telling my story is helping somebody else face their own life, then that's the least that I can do. I can tell them my story because I feel very self-conscious talking about myself because then I feel like everybody says she's always going on about herself. I'm like, oh my God. But then wherever I go, whoever I talk to, they're like, no, share. And I whizzed through all that traumatic period of my life because I was like, oh, I don't think anybody would be interested. Why would they be? And another thing as well, Sonal, you're very scared of people judging you and leaving you and just assuming that, oh my God, she's always on and on about the negativity and the things that she's suffered. Oh God, get over it. So it's a very fine balance, and you need to be careful and you because it's very easy to be judged and to be dismissed by some people, and it's very discouraging. Then it's very heartbreaking. So yeah, so what keeps me going is the love and the support and the encouragement I get, and especially from just people who don't know me. I mean, like we connected on LinkedIn, and So it's amazing what just a few lines, what a few actions can do and get so many people together. And I just love that.
Yeah, no, and you're making such a huge impact, such a huge difference. And when you talk to me about when you shared that story about going to the building to talk about inclusion in public buildings, and how ironic that the building, the office was on the first floor, and there's no elevator, there's no ramp. I mean, the fire, like the anger in you, it must have been, rekindled like 10 times over. Like, yeah, this is why I do what I do. Like, hello, it's lost on you. Why is it lost on you? I'm here. Let's talk about it. So fantastic, Sana. So anyone who's listening today are like, oh my God, she's amazing. And, if anyone's looking for an accessibility lawyer or, advice, or whether it's in Pakistan or outside, what is the best way for people to learn more about you?
Connect with me on social media. I am very public, and I share a lot of stuff for people to see what I do. And I mean, like I said before, if my story or if a post that I share helps somebody overcome the barriers that they are facing, to overcome the obstacles that they might have just me feeling, or if lows that they are feeling, just they feel better after looking at me or reading about how I went through what I did and I came out of it. I mean, that's just credit enough for me, and that is fuel for me, and for me it keeps me going. And I am so grateful that I have a platform. I have people who just make my life worth living, and they keep me going, and that's it. And I always feel I'm not doing anything. I mean, I'm just living my life the way I want to, but if it helps somebody, then wow.
No, absolutely. And for the person who's listening right now, echoing Sana's words, I'm not doing anything. I'm just living my life. There's so many challenges. Like Sana said, don't use other people's yardstick to measure if it's really a challenge. Like, what's the big deal, compared to what this person is going through, or that person is going through. But at the end of the day, just helping people out there, even by showing up, getting out of bed, making your bed in the morning, celebrating all those little things. That's such a powerful message coming from someone like Sana Khurshid. Sana, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so, so much for your time, and wish you a lot of success with everything that you're doing and everything that you're fighting for. You're making a huge impact on the world, and I'm so glad we bumped into each other.
Thank you so much, Sonal, and thank you so much for your kind words, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to spread awareness, to tell people my story. I mean, it's a huge thing, and I really appreciate it. And it's been so lovely talking to you. Like, I mean, I love to talk. It doesn't even feel that we don't know each other. We've never met, but yeah.
No, it's absolutely lovely.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.